What is going on, people? Man, we're back with another video, and this video is going to be a little bit longer. We're going to read a text from the ninth century that is an apologia, defense. However, I wanted to introduce this text to basically show uh, that even in the ninth century, there was strong critical thinking, uh, understanding, wisdom, defending, and just kind of trying to prove their own point. But not only that, showing that um, people weren't ignorant of other religions or texts as we are. Some of us might only know Christianity, and some of us might maybe know some of Islam or some of Jehovah Witness uh, teaching or Mormonism, um, or Wicca, or Norse mythology or Greek mythology, stuff like that. But um, the reason I wanted to read this, um, and I'm going to break this down. So the first part, this video was going to be focused on why um, this was written and the inconsistency of what is called the monotheists, but that just means that there is only one principle. They state that the one principle is responsible for everything that occurs. This is a refutation on that, but I want you guys to listen to the argument because it is profound. It's absolutely profound, and at least it'll make you question. And so this first part is going to be um, chapter 6 in a book. And the book is called the Shkand gumanig Vizar, or the doubt dispelling exposition. Now, this was written in the ninth century. This is a translation. I believe this translation is from 1995. There is also another translation that was in French from 1945. And then there was also one done, the Pahlavi text, in 1882. But the original of this is from the ninth century. And it is by Mardan Baroques, uh, who was, if you read the whole text, which it's not that long, it's maybe, it's free. I'll post the link, but let's just get into it, okay? So he says, from here on, I write about the inconsistency of their insane, that's in parentheses, discourses. May you cast an upright glance on it with wise eyes. Hmm. So he's talking to somebody saying, read this with wisdom. Now listen to what he says. He says, first about the monotheists who state thus, there is only one God who is benefactor, wise, powerful, clement. And when you go look up this yourself, you'll see the notes here. He's basically stating this is what they say in their texts. So he posts here as far as only one God, uh, Quran, chapter 2, verse 163. Wise, Quran 36:38. Clement, uh, Quran 19:93, 57:9. So it'd be good to read this along with the Quran translation, so you can see what he read and what he's disputing. And merciful, so that both pious deed and crime, truth and falsehood, life and death, good and evil come from him. And he's referencing Quran chapter 4, verse 78. Now, I'm not going to read all those, um, but I would encourage you to read those. And I just want to get to what his argument is. Now he says, okay, ask them this. Okay, this is what they say about God. Ask them this. Is God always beneficent and merciful, benefactor and law abiding? Does he know all that is and was and will be? Does he attain whatever he wills? And he says, ask them this too. Is he law abiding and interceding? Or is he once thus and another time not thus? For if he be clement, benefactor, and merciful, then why has he thrown Artman, or that is Satan, and the demons, and the hell, and all this much evil, and these marks of punishment at his own creatures, through his clemency and benefaction and mercifulness? If he knew nothing of it, then where are his wisdom and omniscience? If he did not wish to keep calamity and evil away from his creatures, and to give only benefit to every person who is loyal, where is his law abidingness and intercession? If it were not possible for him to not create it, then how is he omnipotent? Anyhow, we may observe and consider that when they say that everything good and evil has arisen from God, then there is no possibility except if they separate from him these four virtues which are required for divinity. Those are omniscience, omnipotence, goodness, and mercifulness. When only one of these four virtues is separated from him, then he is not complete in his divinity. So God ceases being God at that point. For he who is not omniscient, or not omnipotent, or not good, or not merciful is not God. Further, when he is a successful ruler over every person and thing, and that's also quoting Quran, chapter 2, verse 107, and 114, verse 2, and chapter 6, verse 164, then why did not he exempt his world and kingdom from every enemy and adversary of his activities, so that there would not be anything whatever of offense, oppression, injustice, and complaint for anyone in his kingdom? Since the kingdom and or lordship of a human king and or lord is at that time esteemed, when he can protect and take care of his country and kingdom through his wisdom, so that the enemies of his activities may not dare to rise up against him and to commit sin and harm, or when the enemies of his activities rise up against him, then he can keep them away from his bosom friends and make everyone exempt from offense. Further, if he be victorious, prevailing, and dominating, then over whom are his victory, prevalence, and domination? For victory and prevalence are over the enemies who take the opposite side in a conflict. See, it is not proper to be oneself the enemy who takes the opposite side towards his own. As long as there is no enemy and opponent over whom he becomes victorious and prevalent, victory and prevalence will not be attributed to him. For even cattle and sheep, when they have no adversary and injurer, are prevailing and victorious over themselves. Further, is he contented and acquainted with his divinity and grandeur, or not? If he be contented and acquainted with, then he is contented to make enemies and criminals, knowing and voluntarily, and to cause a disturbance in the world, and to be content with the misery of the world and creatures. But is it proper to want them crime and calamity, and to be indeed their enemy and curser, and to make man calamitous and hellish? Further, whatever he says, does he speak truthfully and credibly or not? If he speaks truthfully and credibly, then when he says that I am a friend of good deed and an enemy of crime, And however he creates more crime and criminals than good deed and benefactors, then where is his truthful speaking? We're still referring to God here. Further, is his will good or evil? If his will be evil, then from what is his divinity? If his will be good, then why are the evil ones and evil more than the good ones and good? Further, is he merciful or not? If he be not merciful, then from what is his divinity? If he be merciful, then why does he say that? This is the Quran that he's referring to. He's saying, okay, if this is the nature of God, right, then why does he say in the Quran, I sealed the heart, ears, and eyes of men, so that it is not possible for them to think, speak, or do anything but that which is desired by me? And that is Quran 2, verse 7 and 6:46. Says, some of them were by chance or incidentally made great and free, and some others were killed and annihilated by many kinds of death, and were thrown to eternal hell, so that those whom I make anew become good and pious. Now those who were made anew are, except a few, much more criminal and more sinful than those who were before. Are you getting the argument as we're going along here? If God is the source of both, then how is there an enemy? If God is the source of both good and evil, so does he speak, when he speaks truth, is it truth or is it falsehood? See, so he's saying, okay, let's test the character of your God and see if it's consistent, if it's logical. Let's continue here. Further, if whatever he does with wisdom and with good reason, then when he had no opponent and adversary, as soon as he prepared the creation of the first man, why did his servants turn to demoniacal disobedience toward the first man? And this is referencing, let's see here, and to the infidelity deserving hell. I believe this is 28 was in reference to Deuteronomy as well. Made great and free, and some others were killed, annihilated by many kinds of death. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. So, if he, that is God, did not know that they would turn, that is, he wasn't omniscient, then it is convenient to suppose that he resorted to trial and error, because he has prepared many thousands and 10,000 so that they may serve him and honor his lordship. That is Quran, chapter 51, verse 56. But all have become disobedient and heedless, not listening to admonition. For people with their little knowledge cannot prepare and fashion things according to their will. And however, if they prepare and fashion something which does not so appear and become as is their will, they do not insist to prepare it again, but they keep themselves from doing it again. Whereas the omnipotent and omniscient Lord of the numerous and innumerable things he has hitherto made and prepared, not even one appears and becomes as is his will. And yet still he does not keep himself from preparing and creating anew. So he's really tackling what is written, the basically the theology of the God in the Quran as of right now in this chapter. That's kind of what he's focusing on. And remember, this is 9th century Iran. As the Creator prepared the first angel on account of respect out of fire. For several thousand years, as they say, the angel served him through worship. At last, the first angel did disobey only one command that was given by him thus: pay homage to the first man whom I prepared out of clay. Now, this is also Quran, chapter 2, verse 34, chapter 7, verses 11 through 12. The story of when God created the first man in the Quran. And he reasonably apologized as to what ought not to pay homage. Then he, the Creator, despised and humiliated him with hurt and curse and wrath. Quran chapter 2, verse 18. And turned him into the state of a demon and a devil. And sent him out of heaven and gave him several millennia of perpetual life and dominion, so that I will go and make your servants astray and deluded. This is all Quran. This is all Quran. Thus, God made him voluntarily injurer and adversary. And that is Quran 58:10. Later on, the man to whom the supreme angel and many other worshippers were ordered to pay homage on account of respect and honor was put in the garden of paradise, so that he may cultivate and eat all the produce, except of that one tree of which he ordered thus: you shall not eat of it. He prepared with them, the first man and woman, a deceiver and seducer, and let him into the garden. Some say he is a serpent. Some say he is Ardman, or Satan. God himself gave to men the nature of eating and greediness. Then the seducer deceived them, saying, eat of that tree. Some say he addressed Adam, and they ate through the nature of eating. Having eaten, they became so knowing that they discerned and knew good and evil. Now he quotes Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 through 7, and also the Quran. If you're not familiar, the story of Adam and Eve is in the Genesis account and also in the Quran. Okay? Different outcomes of the story, but they're both in there. Because of that one injunction, because of that one disobedience, which they forgot, and he himself was the cause of that forgetfulness, he deprived him of that enormous respect and honor, and he forced him with his wife out of the garden of paradise by grievous wrath and disrespect, and delivered them to the hands of the enemy, who is deceiver and seducer, to impose his own will on them and to gain control of them. Now, which injustice, unreasonable order, slowness in wisdom, and little knowledge are more wrongful and more calamitous than that? Moreover, why did not he, that is God, right? So why did God not make that garden so fortified and firm that that seducer could not have gone into it? Henceforth, he, the seducer, has seduced and seduces many servants and worshippers of the Creator. And for this reason, the Creator has sent from time to time many apostles and prophets to the world, so that they may save my servants from the hands of the seducer and bring them into the right path and way. Quran 1 verse 6. The apostles and prophets, whose duty was the bringing of mankind into the right way and path, were all slain by a horrible death or banished according to the Creator's own will. And there he quotes Luke 11 verse 49, and also Matthew 23 verse 34. So he's not ignorant of the text of other scriptures. He says, the original seducer and deluder is left alive forever, and until now his will to seduce and delude is more victorious and successful than that of God, because those seduced and astray are much more numerous than those in the right way and not seduced. Further, does he do whatever he does with a motive or not? So we're back to God. If he does it without a motive, then he acts at random, and it is not convenient to praise him who acts at random as a wise God. If he does it with a motive, then when he had no opponent and adversary, what is the motive and reason of creating all these creatures, such as demons and men who are disobedient, who strive against his will, and who are seducer, and these innumerable useless creatures? Now listen, okay? Let's let this just sink in for a minute, right? He's saying if God does everything according to his will, then this is also his will. So then there is no opponent. The adversary is God's will. The garden is God's will. Everything that has occurred up to this point is actually how God intended it to be. So how can he be angry when they ate from the tree? How can he be angry when things don't go according to his will? Because it's his will. Because there's one divine principle, right? So that's what he's refuting. That's what he's fighting against in his refutation here. Further, if he, God, knows all that is, was, and will be, then he ought not to create through his knowledge and will anything of which he may be regretful, and which opposes his will and command, and becomes an adversary of his apostles who fulfill his will. If they say that this adversary was created good and nice in the beginning, but afterwards changed into evil and the deluding of the creatures, then you should reply. So he's telling the person who reads this, saying, okay, if this is what they say, then this is what you should say. If he be omnipotent, right? If he be all powerful, why is the will of the adversary in changing it to evil and the deluding of creatures more prevailing and more dominating than that of God? So he's saying, okay, if that's the case, then why are most people following the will of the adversary? For in the temporal world, that is this world, right? The evil is more powerful than the good. Let's see what he's quoting there. Time, age, in this time, in this age. Remember, this wasn't written in English, but we do have an English translation. Further, if the criminal to be, or if the criminal is out of his will, out of God's will, and he himself led the minds of criminals astray, and he himself sowed the seed of crime, when the seed of crime grew from the root, he slew one and rewarded another. Where then is his power of law abidingness? Further, here's another thing to ponder. Did he make and create this world? Did God make and create this world with a motive for his beatitude and for the sake of the ease and benefit of men, or without a motive for his distress and for the sake of the oppression, guilt, suffering, and death of men? For if he made it without a motive, then he acted at random. An act without a motive is not acceptable on behalf of the wise. Basically, acting out of random is not wise. Therefore, it is not an attribute of God. It's not requisite of the divinity. If he made it with a motive and he created for his own beatitude and for the ease and benefit of men, why then did he not bring forth prosperity and much benefit? If his beatitude and benefit arise from the preparation of man and animal, what profit will he gain out of their slaughter and destruction? It's really just, I have not read any refutations of a one divine principle belief, and you find this one divine principle belief in Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And in later videos, we'll go through more of this when he dives specifically into Judaism and Christianity. This is really just about monotheism in general, that one divine principle that he's refuting here. And I think he does a great job. I think he's really making some salient points that we should ponder. And I'm going to post this in the description so you can read it and then go to the references to the Quran and Genesis and what have you. If it was not God himself who gave the thought of crime to man, then who is he who dared to give the thought of crime contrary to command and will, to God's command and will? If it was he himself who gave it, and now he considers it a fault, then where is his rightfulness and intercession? While man with little knowledge and small wisdom does not, as far as he is able, allow lion and wolf and other beasts into his plantations and barren lands, lest they may spoil them, why has the merciful God let or thrown Artemin or Satan and the demons upon his own creatures, so that they have made them blind and deaf, astray, deceitful, and hellish? Interesting point. If God did so for testing, as they say, that he created the evil for testing the creatures. Now, this is Quran, I believe. Yep. Quran, and we should read this because it's interesting. Quran chapter 67, dot 3 says that God created death and life so that he may try men, which of them is best in deeds. Also, chapter 21, verse 35. Every soul person will taste of death. We try you by evil and good by way of temptation. That's Quran. Let's hear what uh, the refutation is of Baruch Mandash, I believe the name is. In the 9th century, okay, this is not new. People have been wrestling with these ideas forever. But let's get to the root. Okay, you say there's one divine principle. Okay, here are the problems with that view. Okay, let's read that again. If he, God, for testing, as they say, as Islam says, or Muslims say, that he created the evil for testing the creatures, then why did he not know in advance man and animal? Because he whose authority is dependent upon testing is not to be called omniscient. So, in brief, if God had no opponent and adversary and was able to create all the creatures and creations free from harm, then why did he not create it so? Or maybe did he wish it, but he was not able to do so? If he wished it, but he was not able, then he is not completely powerful. If he was able to do so, but he did not wish it, then he acted unmercifully. If he knew there will be something or someone among these creatures and creations which I create that will not be according to my will, and however he made the world of life, then it is unreasonable to be constantly so discontented and angry. And that's quote, God is wroth against him, and he has cursed him and prepared for him an awful doom. That is Quran chapter 4, verse 93. It is to be so constantly so discontented and angry with his own creatures, and to curse them and to cast them away for punishment in hell. Do you get that point? That is a very important point. If there was no opponent or adversary, he was able to create all the creatures and creations free from harm, then why didn't he create it that way? Or maybe he wished it that way, but he didn't have the power to do it. Or maybe he was able to, but he didn't wish that, and so that made him unmerciful. Man, that's deep. And then let's keep going here. Further, if the crime in thought, so thought crime, if the crime in thought, crime in words, and crime in deed, and the sin which man thinks, speaks, and does, as well as aching, illness, poverty, and punishment, and calamity of hell, all of these are not possible to exist except through the will and command of God, as long as the will and power of God are eternal, because his essence is also eternal, it is then certain that forever there is no hope for anyone to be saved from calamity and punishment. And that is Quran chapter 4, verse 14 that he's talking about. It says, he will make him, the infidel, enter fire, that is hell, where he will dwell forever. His will be a shameful doom, and the road of hell wherein they will abide forever. Ugh. He's saying, bro, if, like, listen, like, These are not possible to exist except through the will and command of God. As long as the will and power of God are eternal, because his essence is also eternal, it is then certain that forever there is no hope for anyone to be saved from calamity and punishment. For it is thoroughly evident that there is no teacher or master whatever who keeps him away from this wicked and evil will. If, heaven forbid, that poor man follow the advice of the apostles and religious authorities, commit no crime and sin, right? So they tell you don't sin, for they intend to reject the will and command of God. So let's kind of break this down here. He's saying none of this could exist apart from the will of God. Okay, so if you tell people don't sin, you're actually you're actually rejecting the will and command of God. Deep stuff, bro. Deep stuff. Likewise, as both crime and good deed are his will. Bro, listen. As both crime and good deed are his will, it is not clear whether he approves the good deeds of the good doing or the crimes of the criminal, because they're both his will. Quran 4:88. According to the Quran, Allah himself leads astray the hypocrites and wrongdoers. Quran 4:88. See ye to guide him whom Allah has led astray. 14:27. God led wrongdoers astray. God does what he will. All everywhere in the Quran says that. Anyway, Allah leads astray whom he wills, and he guides whom he wills. Okay, so it is not clear. So we cannot know whether he approves the good deeds of the good doing or the crimes of the criminal. Right. Now, he says, likewise, the physicians who, in the hope of the salvation of the soul, prepare medicines for the sick and remove and dispel their pain and sickness. I said this is going to be a long video, okay? But it's a very interesting refutation, because it's not refuting one ideology. It is going to the root of these belief systems, the one divine principle belief system. So he says, likewise, the physicians who, in the hope of the salvation of the soul, prepare medicines for the sick and remove and dispel their pain and sickness, so that owing to that action they possess merit. However, they are made ready for the punishment of hell. Those who, for the love of the soul, give something to the poor, needy, helpless, and thereby remove want and poverty from them and release them from these calamities, so that owing to that action they possess merit. However, they certainly have charge of grievous sin if they state that the physicians who concoct remedies and those who give things to the poor and helpless, all this is through the will of God. According to the Quran, Allah does what he wills. Okay, that's what he's quoting there. Then if God be without an adversary and without an opponent, then it is easier and more reasonable and more appropriate for him not to create sickness and poverty than this. He himself, that is God, makes them sick and poor, and he commands people, do make them healthy and free from want. If they say that his will is this, that he may recompense the physicians and donors in gratitude for their goodness, he's also quoting the Quran there. Like I said, please go to the source that I'm going to put. You can even go to Quran.com and read the text that he's referring to in the Quran. And he's saying it doesn't make sense because this. So let's read that sentence again there. If they say that his will is this, that he may recompense the physicians and donors in gratitude for their goodness and make them proceed to paradise and eternal beatitude, then notice that how unlawfully and weakly he acts when, willing beneficence and prosperity for only one servant, he makes many innocents indigent, oppressed, poor, needy, sick, and calamitous. Moreover, if he be not able to bring beneficence and prosperity to one, except by indigence, oppression, and pain and harm to the other, then he does not deserve to be empowered, successful, and free from opposition. If they say that he makes the sick and the poor proceed in the world of thought as a recompense to paradise and eternal beatitude. Let's read that. 66. Okay. So if they say he makes the sick and the poor proceed in the world of thought, and as a recompense to paradise and eternal beatitude, then notice that if he be not able to give the recompense in the world of thought, except through the calamity in the world of life, then he is not almighty. Moreover, his production of indigence, violence in the world of life, that is, this world, is doubtless precipitate and unreasonable, but the recompense in the world of life is doubtful, unbelievable, and after the production of indigence, violence. Since the previous violence is without a motive, the subsequent recompense will be alike without a motive and absurdly. Moreover, no subsequent liberty or nobility is found after a previous violence without a cause. Further, one of these three states is inevitably right. The things that are or were or will be in the world are all by his will, or they are not. Or there are some that are by his will, and there are some that are not. For nothing whatever is found which is not good or evil or a mixture of both. If they say, so now he's going to break down those three, right? So if they say all things are according to his will, then good and evil are both his will. If good and evil be both his will, that is God's will, he is of imperfect will. He is not perfect even as to one, good or evil. He who is of imperfect will may be of imperfect essence, as is shown above. If nothing be according to his will, on account of nothing being according to his will, then he is will less. He has no will. He who has no will or is will less, his action is natural or instinctive. He whose action is natural, he has received a nature and is made. If some be according to his will, and some be not according to his will, and if nothing be found in the world which is neither good nor evil, once again, he's going back to what the Quran says about God. Then if God be of good will, it is acknowledged that he is not malevolent, and that which is evil is not according to his will. And if he be of evil will, then he is inevitably not benevolent, and that which is good is not according to his will. If that which is good be according to the will of God, it is acknowledged that that which is evil is from the will of another one. If that which is evil be according to his will, then that which is good is inevitably from the will of another one. It is then inevitable and manifest the contrary of the will of God. Do you understand the argument here? It's really profound. I find this argument really profound. Okay, you're saying everything is his will, so that includes good and evil. So then his will is imperfect because they're contrary. Okay, if all good things are his will, then those things that are they're evil are the will of another one, right? You see, so you're seeing what's manifest here. If one says that evil originates from man, again, going back to the Quran, because it says in the Quran here, it says, whatever of good befalleth thee, O man, it is from Allah. And whatever of evil befalleth thee, it is from thyself. Right? That's what he's quoting here. Here we go. He says, if one says that the evil originates from man, then since the essence of man did not always exist, it is inevitable that evil existed before man or after, or it was concomitant with man. If they say that it was before man, then since there was no other creator of spiritual and material worlds apart from God, then either God created evil or it created its own essence or it was itself eternal. If they say that it was after man, then since human substance is likewise a creation of God, and God did not create the evil of man in his substance, how does evil originate by human activities from him? If by his activities man produced evil in spite of the will of God, and God was well aware of this production by man, then it is manifest that God is imperfect in his will, and man is prevailing and victorious in repelling the will and command of God, and in committing evil contrary to the will of God and the power of God in his own will, and his servants is feeble. If they claim that he makes them proceed afterwards to the hard punishment of hell, then if God be an agent endowed with power, then not to let men commit crime, but to expel it from their hearts and thoughts, or hearts-thoughts, would be more advantageous and more befitting to the clemency of God than to let them commit. It is inevitable, he says, that he was contented with it, with the committal of crime by man, and afterwards he contentedly punishes his own creatures. Indeed, if I consider one principle, so he's saying, if I consider what you're saying in your book, then either impotence or little knowledge or scanty goodness becomes manifest. If they say that God spiritually and materially created evil for the reason that man may appreciate goodness. Man, that's deep, right? Have you had those conversations with people where they say it was to bring about a greater good? This is what he said. Okay. Okay, if they say that, then you should notice that if evil be requisite and advantageous for appreciating goodness, then his will, God's will, is both good and evil. And if his will be evil and good, and evil be requisite and advantageous, then this is in contradiction with what they say, that evil is not through his will, right? So he's saying it's in contradiction to what these groups say about evil not being his will. Concerning that also which they say that he created death, pain, and poverty for the reason that people may much more appreciate life, health, and opulence, and become more thankful unto God. He's saying, okay, so they say this. He says, okay, consider this or notice this. Notice this. You should notice that taking such actions is unreasonable after the manner of him who gives poison to people for the sake of increasing the value and price of an antidote. And he's quoting for the analogy of God and how the antidote and poison. That's Augustine against Faust. That's a work. Saint Augustine or Augustine contra Faust, book 11:16, I believe he's saying here. So he's saying God brought about evil for a greater good is what he's basically contending with. This is deep stuff, right? This is deep. I don't know how many people have read this, have heard this, or have even come across a refutation of one divine principle. That's what he's saying. These groups all have this in common, this one divine principle. Here are the problems with that. And this stuff is deep right here, bro. I love it. All right. Now let's keep going here. That's deep. So that he may sell the antidote more expensive and more costly. What kind of interceding act is this, that in order to make known the value of goodness to some people, he lets pain and death and calamity come on some innocent people? Further, a group of them state that God is sovereign over every creature and creation because the creations all belong to him. If he exercises his authority over them as he desires, and whatsoever he desires, he is not oppressor, because oppression is that which one inflicts upon something which does not belong to him. Then he who possesses all things exercises over them as he desires, and is not oppressor. And he's actually discussing an opinion of al usul, basically fundamentalists. And he says, you should therefore know this, that if on account of sovereignty, he who oppresses is not to be called oppressor. Right? He's saying because he owns everything. How can he oppress something when he possesses all things? Right? He says, you should therefore know this, that if on account of sovereignty he who oppresses is not to be called oppressor, then he who is a sovereign and tells a lie is voracious, and he who on account of sovereignty commits crime, sin, theft, and robbery is not to be called a sinner. As the blessed Rosen, son of Adar Farabe, this is going to be a work from a Zoroastrian, related as a parable. He says, and the text doesn't say this, but I'm going to keep it PG 13, maybe NC 17. They saw a man who was having intercourse with a donkey. And when they asked him, why do you commit this obscene act? He replied, thus, in excuse, the donkey belongs to me. Saying, oh, basically, I own it, so therefore I can't oppress it because it's mine, right? Again, you should ask them, is God a friend or an enemy to these creatures and creations which he has created? This is another point that he's going to press regarding the one divine principle. If he be a friend of creatures, then it is not convenient to him to desire and create the misery and calamity of the creatures, and to be never satisfied of the disturbance and calamity of his own creations. If he be an enemy of the creatures, then it is not convenient to him to create through his power and knowledge that thing which behaves like an enemy and strives against his will. This is deep stuff, bro. Deep stuff. This is deep philosophy, and just stuff I would have never even thought to think of, because I'm not that smart. I'm not smarter than a 9th century Zoroastrian, that's for sure. And this is when I first read this, I was blown away by how Socratic it is, bro. Like just the way that he is putting it, he's putting it to task. Okay, you say this, here are the implications of your view. This also you should ask, is God always an erudite, good, sovereign, and producing freedom, or an ignorant, bad sovereign and oppressor, or sometimes an erudite, good, sovereign, and producing freedom, and sometimes an ignorant, bad sovereign and oppressor? Okay. What is God like? Which one is he? All the time this, sometimes this, all the time that, sometimes that. If he be always an erudite, good, sovereign, and producing freedom, then there is not in his kingdom and sovereignty any tyranny, oppression, or complaint, and his friendship towards the creatures and the friendship of the creatures towards him are sincere. Do you see that? Do you sincere? I have talked to so many people, and in regard to just, and I've watched so many videos of people always talking about fear of hell, and just this, the relationship is no longer sincere because it's based on fear. See? But he's saying if God is always erudite, good, sovereign, and producing freedom, then there is not in his kingdom and sovereignty any tyranny, oppression, or complaint. and his friendship towards the creatures and the friendship of the creatures towards him are sincere. For this reason, he is merciful to his creatures, and his creatures are thankful, praise him, and are sincere friends towards him. Thus, he deserves the name of God, worthy of worship. Now, here's the flip. If he be an ignorant, bad sovereign and oppressor, then he is a true enemy to the creatures, and his creatures are alike enemy to him. For that very reason, he is a corrupter, destroyer, and seducer of the creatures, and his creatures complain of him, strive against him, and are his true enemies, and he does not deserve the name of God. Since he is eternal, the creatures have no hope to be made free from fear of oppression and calamity to all eternity. Damn. Damn. There is no hope. If he be sometimes a good sovereign, erudite, and producing freedom, and sometimes the reverse, then his friendship towards the creatures is mingled. From a mingled friendship appears a mingled action, and from a mingled action, a mingled essence. His creatures also are mingled friends towards him. One's rival, not if he be a friend, is not an enemy, not if he be a thankful, is not a complaining one, not if he be a praiser, is not one who blames him. That's the way it is among all natural creatures. It is manifest. Further, since all things in the world are not outside of these two descriptive names, good and evil, if good and evil be said to be from God and out of God's will, and that is concerning the belief of the Sunnites. I believe that is the Sunni Islam sect, but which is a majority Islam sect. But anyway, let's read this again because this gets deep. Further, since all things in the world of life are not outside of these two descriptive names, good and evil, if good and evil be said to be from God and out of God's will, then the poor Abrahamic, or poor Satan, who is not sinful, nor the principle of evil, and never was, nor will be evil and rebellious, is unreasonably defamed. And then he basically states that which is mentioned in the Quran, that our men, Satan, became rebellious, and they, or he, right, God, put him out of heaven. A bunch of Quranic verses he gives. After I read this piece, I'll let you know the Quranic verses. But I encourage you, read this with the verses that he cites. He says, that which is mentioned in the Quran about Satan became rebellious, and they put him out of heaven, is unreasonable, because even that rebellion and disobedience were likewise out of God's will. He's saying it is unreasonable. Concerning the disobedience of Satan and his expulsion from paradise, Quran chapter 7, 11 through 18, 15, 31 through 34, chapter 17, 61 through 63, chapter 18, verse 50, chapter 20, verse 116, chapter 38, verses 74 to 77. We're not done. We're, like I said, this is going to be a long video, but it is going to be good. It's good to be exposed to these thoughts, because every major religion in the West is from the source of one divine principle, a theology, let's say. Everything is in God's will. Everything is controlled by God. Da, 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 da. Even if it be said that the good comes from God and out of God's will, and the evil from man. Quran again, boom. Then Abrahamic, or Satan, is not the principle of evil, nor is he sinful, and the curse on him and the blame on him, or the curse on him and the blame of him are unreasonable, if evil's from man. If, heaven forbid, all this calamity and evil be not out of a different substance, but out of one substance and from the essence of God himself, then God is his own enemy and adversary. Gotta clap, bro. Gotta clap. It's just, he says, heaven forbid. He's saying the way you think is freaking ridiculous. That's what he basically, heaven forbid. Further, to speak of the existence of crime without a substance of crime is very puzzling, as it is puzzling to suppose evil out of the substance of good is deluding, then it is more puzzling to suppose Artman, Satan, who is the origin and principle of every crime, out of the spiritual and material creation of God. In short, so he says, all right, well, peep this, all right? So look, I went through all that. So in short, if there be nothing which is not within the will of God, and if everything be out of the will of God, meaning not outside, but everything is according to the will of God, no one is sinner, and also there is no reason to sin the prophet and religion. If it be convenient to condemn anyone for sinfulness, it is more convenient to condemn him who is the original agent, keeper, and creator of every evil and crime. If it be said that evil and crime come from Satan or man, and since they are likewise created by God, then the source, he who is the source original cause of evil, is worse than evil. Now he's going, now he's going deep. He says, all right, check this out. This also you should notice that all sects attribute this saying to their religious authorities and apostles, prescribed to their own community. Perform good deeds, abstain from crime. On account of seduction, that's what he's saying, that do good, don't sin. Do good, don't sin. That's what he's saying they say. On account of seduction, they do not think this, that from where and from what principle does proceed the crime about which it is commanded that you shall not commit it, and I will cast him who commits it into eternal hell. For if the crime be out of God, then it would be easier for him not to create it, then after having created it and made it manifest, to command us to abstain from it. Thus, I do not find any advantage and cause in the spiritual and material creation of evil. Moreover, in their scriptures about good deed and crime, there are contradictory statements. For example, good deed and crime proceed both from me. Neither demons nor sorcerers are capable to harm anyone. No one who accepts religion or does good, and no one who walks in infidelity or commits crime, except through my will. In the same scripture, the Quran, he threatens Allah and utters curses on the creatures thus, why do men will and commit that crime which I will for them? The will and act are in his own hands, and even so he frightens them with punishment in body and soul. He's saying the will and act are in the hands of God, in the will of God. And even so he frightens creatures with punishment in body and soul. But in another place he states, I myself am the seducer of people. For if it be my will, I would show them the right way. This is God in the Quran. But it is my will that they go to hell. And he's saying Quran, chapter 7, verse 178. Quran, chapter 14, verse 4. Quran, chapter 6, verse 125. And in another place he states thus, man himself is the agent of crime. Quran, chapter 4, verse 79. We're still going. Look, I know it's a long video, and It's kind of off the cuff. I'm reading the text. I want you to read it for yourself. But I just wanted you to be exposed to, if you hold to this one divine principle, everything happens in the will of God and in this kind of idea, right? Uh, Answer these questions. Let's hear the refutations. In these three manners, God gives different evidences about his creatures. One is that this. Wow, so these are the contradictions. That he himself is Ardman, Satan. One is that he is himself the seducer of the creatures. On the other hand, he himself falls in with Armin in seducing the creatures when he states thus, sometimes I do commit crime, sometimes Ardman does. Through that which he states that man himself commits crime, he joins his own with Armin in avoiding crime. For if men commit crime because of their substance and their own misleading, then God with Satan is far from crime, because as it is not because of God, it is not even because of Satan, Ardman. Again, you should ask those called Mutazilites. This is another group. Thus, is it the will of God for people to abstain from crime through their free will, to be saved from hell, and to lead them forward to heaven, or not? So, is it the will of God for people not to sin and to be saved from hell and lead them to heaven? If one says that it is not his will, so kind of like a Calvinist, I would say, like someone who says God only predestined certain people to heaven and then certain people to hell. Whether that's just by passing them over or just by infralapsarian, supralapsarian, basically before creation or before the fall, after the fall. But is it God's will? Basically, he's saying. Someone would be like, no, God's not trying to save everybody, right? Crazy, crazy shit. But people believe that shit. It's crazy. Anyway, so I guess there was a group in the 9th century that kind of had some same ideas like that. He says it is not his will, then he affirms the little goodness of God and the wickedness of his will. For this reason, he is not worthy to be praised as a divinity. If one says that it is his will, then he affirms the good will of God. For this reason, he is worthy to be praised as a divinity. Besides, is he capable to fulfill his will or not? If one says that God is not, then he affirms the incapability of God to fulfill his will. For this reason, he is not worthy to be praised as an almighty divinity. If one says that he is capable of fulfilling his will, then he affirms the capability of God to fulfill his will. For this reason, he is worthy to be praised as an almighty divinity. Further, when he is capable of fulfilling his will, does he fulfill it or not? If one says that God does fulfill it, then the abstaining from sin, being saved from hell, and attaining heaven would be manifest for all people. But the reality is not manifest so, and makes or proves his religion false. If one says that he is capable of fulfilling his will, but does not fulfill it, then he affirms the mercilessness of God, his misanthropy, and his failure to fulfill his will. For if he fulfill it, then it is no loss to him, and is a profit to people, and his will is fulfilled. If he does not fulfill it, then it is no profit to him, and it is a loss to people. And he fails to fulfill his will. Whew. I know, it's a long video. Thank you all for tracking with me. Appreciate it. This is a fantastic source. Like I said, I'm going to post it. Let's keep going. Further, does he not fulfill it willingly or unwillingly? If one says that he does not fulfill it willingly, then he affirms that God is good-willed, but has no will to do good, since this statement is contradictory. To think is even wrong. To think it is even wrong. It's a contradiction. If one says that he is unwilling, therefore does not fulfill it, then he affirms the weakness of God, per se, or the existence of the injurer of his will. In short, if this world of life had a director who was without opponent, without rival, and perfect in wisdom and goodness and power, then there would not be all these unfair deeds, oppression, calamity, pain, and sorrow, of which suffer most of men and other creatures. Because when a director is without opponent and perfect in wisdom, he knows means for evil not to exist, and also remedies for removing evil. When he is perfect in goodness and merciful, he first of all has no will for the existence of evil. See, listen, when he is perfect in goodness and merciful, he first of all, he has no will for the existence of evil. I'm gonna let that hit right quick. No will for the existence of evil, but rather the will, the will for its non-existence. When he is perfect in power, he has the power to prevent any evil from coming into existence. Hmm. Thank y'all for tracking. Like I said, long video, long video, and it might be faster if you just went to the source yourself. But I just wanted to put this information out there. I just wanted to put it out there. Here we go. Now, as in the world of life, whose director is God. But this guy's not an atheist. He believes in God. Okay. The existence of evil is undoubtedly obvious. We are faced with this alternative. Either the director has an opponent or has not an opponent. When he does not know means for evil not to exist, and remedies for removing evil, the imperfect wisdom of God is thereby proved. Or his will is both evil and good. The imperfect goodness of his will is proved. Or he is not able to prevent the existence of evil and to remove it. Then the imperfect power of God is proved. When he is imperfect in even one of the qualities, wisdom, goodness, or power, then he is not worthy to be praised and worshiped as a divinity that is omnipotent, all good, omniscient. Man, we're going to keep going. You should know this also, since any existing thing which is acting and willing is not capable of acting or willing, except if it be provided with qualities. Then if the original existence of the creator be divinity, and his attributes be light, beauty, fragrance, purity, goodness, and wisdom. So if the creator's attributes are these, right? Light, beauty, fragrance, purity, goodness, wisdom, then darkness, ugliness, stench, filth, wickedness, and ignorance, which are the demoniacal qualities, ought to be far from him. If his original existence and quiddity be devilry, and his qualities be darkness, ugliness, stench, filth, wickedness, and ignorance, then the qualities of divinity remain strange to him. If there be any existing to whom all these attributes belong, and they are mingled inseparably with his essence, then because of this inseparability, there is no distinction between his goodness and his own evil. Bro, so in this case, the hope of the hopeful is gone out. For he who goes to heaven through doing good is even there in evil and calamity, because there also goodness is not distinct and separate from evil. These are thoughts and words that you're going to have to read over. You're going to have to ponder these. If there be the least goodness which is distinct from evil, then there will be also the evil which is distinct and separate from goodness. This is acknowledged that the difference of good and evil is because of difference of substance. When the difference and separation of the two principles from each other are proved, then the hope of the hopeful will be true, and wisdom will be their guide. You should know this also. Every word which is not used according to its definition or limit is amorphous and meaningless. Likewise, the limit of divinity is principally wisdom. The limit of wisdom is one thing, beneficial action. A beneficial action is not an action inflicting loss. There are three manners of inflicting loss. Now he gets into this because he's going to tie it into God. There are three manners of inflicting loss. One is that which does not benefit oneself and inflicts loss to oneself. One is that which does not benefit another, but inflicts loss to oneself. One is that which inflicts loss to oneself and also to another. Now here we go. From the creation of our men, or Satan, and the demons, there is no benefit for the God who acts wisely, but there is even loss for others and failure to fulfill his own will, owing to his own action is revealed. That's the first. Moreover, if the will of God be goodness and his will be perpetual, and he be able to fulfill what is convenient to his will, then from the beginning to the end, all the goodness and righteousness in the world would have proceeded according to the will of God. Now it is manifest that wickedness and unrighteousness proceed much more. Therefore, we are faced with this alternative. Either they proceed through the will of God or against his will. If they proceed through the will of God, then it is manifest that his will is for wickedness as well as for goodness. Or he is feeble and changeable in will, since a will does not change unless because of a cause or because of a changer. Then one of these two is true. Either his will changes because of a cause, or there is another one who changes his will. If they do not proceed through the will of God, then it is manifest that God is poor in his own will, and his will is not perfect. Or there is some injurer who wards his will off. I would have never even thought to ask these questions. That's why I find this so mind-boggling. Now, this is my second time reading this text. If you have never heard of this, like I said, I'm going to post it in the description. Thanks for tracking with me, by the way. I appreciate it, guys. I decided to put out content just so people get exposed to different ideas. Just kind of break from the shackles of just rigidity and not being open. You don't know what you don't know, and I find this stuff just fascinating. Oh, bug there. As to this also which they say, that God commanded Adam thus, you shall not eat of this one tree which is in paradise. You should ask them, the command which God gave to Adam, you should not eat of this tree, was it good or evil? Bro, when I first read this, oh my days. Listen, if the command were good, it is manifest that the tree was evil, and it is not proper for God to create anything that is evil. If the tree were good, the command was evil, then it is not proper for God to give an evil command. If the tree were good, and in spite of this he commanded them not to eat it, then it is not proper for God's goodness and mercifulness to keep a benefit away from his own innocent servants. As to this also which they say, that God guides everyone whom he wills to the right way and belief, and as the recompense, he leads him to the eternal beatitude, and him who he does not will, he leaves him in irreligion and godlessness, and for this reason he casts him into the eternal hell and calamity. Okay. You should ask them, is he good whose desire and will are for the religion and faith? See, I'm going to read that again here, just in case, because the voice thing popped up. So it says, you should ask them, is he good who desire and will are for the religion and faith in God and the right way, or he whose desire and will are for the misguidance, irreligion, and godlessness? If one says that he is good, whose desire and will are for the religion of God and the right way, now as to that man, God wills him to be left in irreligion and misguidance and godlessness, but an apostle or another philanthropist invite him to the adherence of the religion. So basically, in layman's terms, right? If he says that if a man says that, it's good that it's God's will to leave a man in his irreligion and misguidance. But if somebody of that religion comes and proselytizes, telling him, hey, convert to adhere to the religion of God in the right way, is God better and more advantageous to that man or that apostle and or that man? If he says that the will of God is better to him, then he implicitly affirms that not acknowledging God, not adhering to the religion, and being misguided are good. This is false and unacceptable and not worthy to be taught. This is garbage. But if he says that coming to the right way and acknowledging God are better and more advantageous to him, then he explicitly affirms that the apostle and the philanthropist are better to him than God, because a man who desires and wills the right way and theism for men is much better than that God who wills error and agnosticism and irreligion for them. Hence, God is much worse than that man. It's like, if this, then that. If this, then that. If this, then that. Further, if the crime in thought and crime in action of men be according to God's will, now that God created the crime in thought and sowed crime in their mind, and Artman, Satan, merely invites and hastens them to the committal of crime, then the crime in thought, which is out of God and God's desire, not outside of, but from God and from God's desire, for it is even stronger and worse than the invitation of Satan. If they're listening to Satan as to the committal of crime is due to the crime in thought, which God created, and their committal of crime is likewise out of God's desire, then it is acknowledged that God is much worse and more sinful than Satan. Then he breaks it down like this. Listen. As regards these sayings which we have enumerated, there are three possibilities. Either all the sayings are true, or all are false, or some are true and some are false. Then he says, okay, if all be true, every saying that does not agree with these sayings is false. Sorry, there's a bug, man. I think I got it. If all be true, every saying that does not agree with these sayings is false. One of these two things must be satisfied: truth and falsehood. If all be false, every saying that does not agree with these sayings is true. It's like true or false, right? If they're all true, and these ones are all false. These are all true, and these ones. If some be true and some be false, then the true sayings are from the substance and family of truth, and the false sayings are from the substance and family of falsehood. There are two origins, one from which proceeds truth and one from which proceeds falsehood. Guys, I appreciate y'all tracking with me. That was the sixth chapter of this book. And that's where we're going to leave it for this video. Let me go ahead and get this source. I'm going to post it in the description. You're going to click on the newer translation of this text. And it was edited and translated by Abrahamic in 2015. But the original text is from the 9th century, guys. The ninth century. Okay? And yes, just so you're aware, there is some cosmology in the book itself. I referred to I was reading chapter 6. Chapter 5 goes against atheism and agnosticism. I specifically wanted to dive into his refutations on the religions themselves. But he starts, which I thought was very profound, on the bedrock and foundation of all the religions he will do his refutation on. He starts with the bedrock of all three of those: Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Actually, he even in his time he even does a refutation on some Manichaean doctrines, which I find interesting as well. But in our day and age, I don't know how many Manichaeans there still are. So in upcoming videos, we're going to do, we're going to keep going. We're going to go to chapter 7. Chapter 8, chapter 9. I'm just going to do each chapter as a video, except chapter 16. So if you want to read chapter 16 on your own, feel free. Like I said, guys, I appreciate you guys checking out my stuff. It means a lot to me. And, hopefully we could do more videos. I plan to do more videos. Hopefully I'll, at some point I'll get a proper microphone, proper camera. You know what I mean? Get it really going so we can have these discussions, chop it up. Long video, but thanks y'all for tracking with me. Please, any questions you have, post them in the comments. What are you guys reading? Religious, fiction, whatever. What do you guys got going on? If you want to just have a one-on-one conversation with me, hit me up so we can chop it up. Get together at some point on a Zoom or something like that and just talk, I love to have religious conversations. Appreciate y'all. That's it. I'm gonna go get in the shower and hit the bed, man. That's what I'm gonna do. Appreciate y'all. Take care.